In this video, we're going to look at the basic number properties. We'll mention those related to addition, but we'll be focusing specifically on multiplication. There are four basic properties of numbers: the commutative property, the associative property, distributive, and identity. You should be familiar with each of these. It is especially important to understand these properties once you reach advanced math, such as algebra and calculus. We'll start with the commutative property. So the commutative property, in addition, when two numbers are added, the sum, the answer, is the same regardless of the order in which the numbers are added. So what that means is 3 plus 5 equals 8, but 5 plus 3 also equals 8. It doesn't matter if the 5 or the 3 come first. 3 plus 5, 5 plus 3, both equal 8. This is something you're aware of, but I just wanted to be familiar with the name. So the commutative property applies in multiplication as well. In multiplication, when two numbers are multiplied together, the product, the answer to a multiplication question, is the same regardless of the order in which the numbers are multiplied. So it doesn't matter if you write 3 times 5 or 5 times 3. Same concept, both equal 15. We can switch it up. Another example with the multiplication commutative property, 2 times 3 is 6. So what's 3 times 2 going to be? Still 6. The order of these two numbers doesn't matter because of this commutative property. Looking now at the associative property. The associative property, in addition, it says when 3 or more numbers are added. So we see here we have 6 plus, in brackets, 4 plus 3, close brackets, equals 13, or 6 plus 4, in brackets, plus 3 equals 13. When 3 or more numbers are added, the sum is the same regardless of the way in which the numbers are grouped. We haven't talked about the order of operations yet, but according to the order of operations, which means the way in which we should approach this question, we do the stuff in the brackets first. So if I was solving this, I would do 4 plus 3 is 7, 6 plus 7 equals 13. That's supposed to be a 3. Over here, because the 6 and the 4 are in brackets, I do that first. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So because of the associative property, in adding, it doesn't matter how they're grouped, they always equal 13. Presumably the multiplication one will be similar. Multiplication. When 3 or more numbers are multiplied, the product is the same regardless of the way in which the numbers are grouped. So as I said, according to the order of operations, we do the stuff in brackets first. So here we do 4 times 3 is 12. Then 6 times 12, I might actually have to do that. Oh, I should know that, my 12 times tables. 6 times 12 is 72. Looking at this one here, I do 6 times 4 first, which is 24, times 3. That one I'm going to do over here. 3 times 4 is 12, 2 down, 1 up. 2 times 3 is 6, 7, equals 72. So it doesn't matter the way they are grouped. So let's do another one. Let's do 2 times 3 times 2. No, let's make that harder. 2 times 3 times 4. I'm going to group this, and then I'm going to go 2 times 3 times 4. So when I'm solving, this becomes 6 times 4, which equals 24. This one, that's 12. 2 times 12 equals 24. 3 digits being multiplied, doesn't matter how they're grouped. Next, we're looking at the distributive property. So the distributive property says the sum of two numbers times a third number is equal to the sum of each addend, this is an addend, times the third number. So here we have 7 plus 2 times 5. That's the same as writing 7 times 5 plus 2 times 5. Because if we did it this way, we'd solve 7 plus 2 is 9, 5 times 9 is 45. If we did it this way, again, we haven't talked about order of operations yet, but I want you to be familiar. We do the multiplication before the addition. Don't worry, we'll talk more later. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 2 is 10, plus together 45. Another example of this, 2 times 3 plus 4 would be the same as saying 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. This one, 2 times 7 equals 14. This one, 6 plus 8 equals 14. Last, we have the identity property. So that is saying, in addition, the sum of any number and 0 is that number. You're very familiar with this. 12 plus 0 is 12. 10 plus 0 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. Straightforward. In multiplication, again, something I think you're already familiar with. You just probably don't realize this is what it's called. The product of any number and 1 is that number. 18 times 1 is 18. 10 times 1 is 10. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 million times 1 is 5 million. That's the idea. So in this first example, it says, which property of multiplication is shown? The idea that 7 times 4 is equal to 4 times 7. The order doesn't matter. If we look down here, that was explained with the commutative property. Commutative. Doesn't matter if it's 3 times 5 or 5 times 3 still equals 15. 7 times 4 is 28. 4 times 7 is 28. This example says, type the missing number. Hint, use the identity property of multiplication. Remember, the identity property of multiplication says any number times, the product of any number and 1 is that number. For example, 18 times 1 is 18. So very obviously, 1 times 84 is 84. This one says, which equation shows the identity property of multiplication? So again, the identity property, the product of any number and 1 is that number. So very simply, this one down here. 5 times 1 is 5. Our last example says, which property of multiplication is shown? 7 times 2 times 3 is equal to 7 times, I should have said bracket, 7 times 2 close bracket times 3 is equal to 7 times bracket 2 times 3 close bracket. I believe this is the associative property. When 3 or more numbers are multiplied, the product is the same regardless of the way in which the numbers are grouped. So for example, 14 times, 7 times 2 is 14 times 3. I don't actually know what that is. 14 times 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 down, 1 up. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. It's 42. Over here, oh yeah, this is an easier way to think about it. 2 times 3 is 6, times 7, equals 42. So that would be the associative property. That's it for this section. Just again, strengthening your understanding of multiplication, knowing it from different angles, practicing it. I'm never gonna test you really on this concept. One of these questions might come up in the quiz, but it's not something, I've gone through life without memorizing these names, but I want you to be familiar with the concepts, especially this one here, the commutative property. This comes up a lot when we do algebra later on, knowing that 3 times 5 is the same as saying 5 times 3. These different rules are important to be familiar with. Okay, good luck with this section.